Welcome to the Fair Housing Insiders. We are so thankful that you joined us. And please remember to subscribe here on our YouTube channel or follow and like us on your favorite social media outlet, which you can find links to in our show notes for even more fair housing news and insights.
Hello, property managers, and welcome to the Fair Housing Insiders. This is episode 108, and today we are talking about polling America. What are property managers getting wrong about fair housing? It's been a really exciting year here at the Fair Housing Institute, and with me today is Leslie Tucker. Me and Leslie have been on the road a lot doing the trade show circuit, which is so much fun, as everyone knows. But it's been a really unique and awesome experience. We've been able to talk to property managers on the ground, get their thoughts about what they're feeling, what's happening in the industry, how the environment is changing. And we've noticed some trends as we've gone across this country and talked to a lot of people that there are some real big issues. There's some things that property managers are, let's say, misunderstanding about fair housing laws and best practices. So today, me and Leslie wanted to take some time to talk about what are the 5 biggest misunderstandings that we're seeing. What are property managers getting wrong? Because we want to help. We want to make sure that you guys are on the right side of every issue and that you are protecting your community, your careers, and your profits, of course. So I'm going to dive right in. One of the things that I kept seeing over and over, we'll call this our number 5, is that ESAs can only be dogs. Guys, this is a big and very clear-cut issue, and that is just not true. ESAs can be pretty much any animal you can imagine. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about a grizzly bear here, but if they're a domesticated pet that people own, it's probably also okay for it to be an ESA animal. There have been cases of ESAs being rats or snakes or miniature horses. And I know a lot of people, their eyes get wide when they hear that, but that is the truth. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to approve every single ESA because an ESA can be anything. But what it does mean is you can't have a blanket policy denying ESAs because they are a certain breed or a certain species. So you need to go through your normal reasonable accommodation process and vet the actual need for the ESA animal all the way through. And you can't stop just because you think it's a strange animal. So, all right, Leslie, why don't you take us to number 4?
Yeah, sure. So as we are at the trade shows, we talk to people who walk by. A lot of times when we will maybe call someone over or try to talk to someone about, what FHI has to offer, the person will say, oh, that's not something that I need. I'm in maintenance. And this is a major misunderstanding that maintenance staff or your maintenance professionals don't need fair housing training. And I'll tell you that in my practice, at least half of all the cases that I handle involve either maintenance staff or maintenance records. Maintenance absolutely needs to be aware of how their role fits into this fair housing world, and what kind of pitfalls there could be, what could get you in trouble as a maintenance professional when it comes to fair housing laws. So it's really important that anyone at your property who has contact with tenants or applicants, makes policies, makes any decisions, is trained in fair housing, and that certainly includes maintenance.
Yeah, well put, Leslie. That's a big oversight we see way too often. So, all right, let's move on to number 3. This was one, I actually get this, on the phone through emails as well, but I certainly saw it out in the field is that, like my people have been trained. Oh, when have they been trained? Like, they started 5 years ago and they took a course, so they're good to go. Guys, that's just not going to cut it. Fair housing training is just a really important part of your risk management and operations. And I know a lot of people are confused as to what the regulations on fair housing training are. And you'd be surprised to know that there really aren't a lot. There isn't a legal requirement that you train so often. But what there is is an industry minimum standard that kind of pervades all the way through the property management industry. And about 5 to 10 years ago, I would have told you that training every 2 years was probably fine. But because the number of fair housing cases keeps skyrocketing every year and the costs associated with the dealing them is just going up and up and up, the industry has changed. And now annual training, especially for the largest housing providers in the country, is the norm because they know they can't afford to do anything else. They need to keep their team trained and ready to go. So our personal recommendation is to get every team member that interacts with residents, guests, applicants, has a strong effect on policy, trained in the first 30 days, and then probably annually after that. And you can mix up how that looks, but the idea is don't let it lapse. Don't let it be 2, 3, 4 years between training sessions. Make sure you guys are on top of it. All right, let's move on to our number 2. What's that, Leslie?
All right, Michael. So as you know, we have created kind of little quizzes for trade show attendees to come by our booth, to, take a really short quiz just to kind of test their knowledge, see, how much they know, how much they've retained since their last fair housing training. And one of the questions that a lot of people were pretty regularly missing was related to when they needed to verify in a reasonable accommodation request. When should you seek outside verification of someone's disability or someone's need for an accommodation? And quite a few people let us know that they have a policy in their company that they have to verify all requests. In every single circumstance, they have to ask for, a letter from someone's healthcare provider or send out their verification form without exception. And I will tell you that this is going to get you in trouble if this is your policy or practice. You are not permitted under the Fair Housing Act to verify someone's disability or need for an accommodation if you are already aware of it. If it's obvious, if it's apparent, if there's information in the file that already indicates this, you can't then seek, additional information regarding that in those topics, their disability or need for an accommodation. So just, be aware of that and be aware that this is a lot more common than I think I even realized.
Yeah, really good point, Leslie. Guys, this isn't just stuff that's open to interpretation. This is stuff that the courts have reaffirmed again and again and again. And if you're caught on the wrong end of it, it's going to hurt. All right. So make sure you're making notes and you're talking to people within the company. All right. Before we get to our number 1, I just want to remind people to please like and subscribe to this channel. If you have a network of people that you think could benefit, please share these videos with them. And we want to hear more from you. We want to hear what you want to talk about. Post some questions in the comments. Let us know about topics you want to hear because we have a lot of exciting changes coming up for the coming year. All right, so on to our number 1 issue that we just kept hearing again and again and again. Got a lot of wide eyes when I told them that they were doing things the wrong way. And that was the policy that you must use our forms for reasonable accommodations and modifications, verification, and whatnot. Now, guys, nobody is happier than me to say like, hey, good on you for using forms. We strongly recommend the use of forms and specific forms for types of reasonable accommodations. However, again, the courts have upheld this many, many times. You cannot require that people use your forms. Now, you have the right to properly vet a reasonable accommodation, a disability, the need for the accommodation. That is perfectly fine. That is your right as a housing provider. But you do not have the right to require them to use your forms. You're allowed to fill out the form yourself if they give you the information. For verification, if they give you a doctor's note that has the proper information on it, you need to accept it. So it's all about getting the right information. It's not about filling out the right forms. You can do that on your own, and I know that's a little burdensome, but again, this is something to protect your property because this will not be something you can defend. And unfortunately, we heard some large housing providers are making this a blanket company policy. And it's just a really dangerous stance to have. So make sure that you are talking to your team about these issues. Make sure that you are reviewing your policies to make sure that you are in compliance with what modern fair housing enforcement and environment looks like. So anyway, guys, this has been really great. I just want to say again, it's been really awesome to be out in the field and meet all of you. We're going to keep going out there. So check If you're going to a trade show or a housing conference, check, we might be there. We can say hi, come down and see us. But stick around on our channel. We've got some really exciting changes coming up for this next 2025 year. We think we're going to dive into some really complicated issues that we've been hearing a lot of questions about, and we want this channel to be a part of your support network. That is what we are here to do. So anyway, for Leslie Tucker and me, Michael Kaufman with the Fair Housing Institute, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Happy training.
Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to hear your feedback about today's episode. Do you have a topic that you would like to see discussed in a future episode? Feel free to share that with us. In the show notes, you'll see a link to sign up for our newsletter. This newsletter will keep you up to date with our latest episodes, blogs, and information about our online fair housing courses. Thank you again, and happy training.